Hi, team. This is Dave Milano from RealTech. I
Hello.
also have Rita Santos on the line with us.
Hi.
Great.
Hello.
Hi, Renee.
Hi.
Perfect. So I joined, sorry it's taken a minute or two. I joined a Teams meeting when I started a Zoom meeting, so apologize for that. But if you're ready and your team's here, we can get started.
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so Renee and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned a product or a solution that's been in the market for over 25 years called Interface Manager, or IM3. And that's how we came to today. And Rita Santos is the product manager based in Portugal for Interface Manager. And today she's going to be showing you the demonstration of the product. And please feel free to ask any questions or make it interactive if there's something that you would like to know about the product. So appreciate everyone's time today. And with that, Rita, I will kick it over to you.
Okay, so help me out here. I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see which one.
How's the heat in Europe? Or it's pretty hot out there.
It is. We have around 40 degrees at the moment. I don't know how much is 40 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit.
Well, it's well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's the same as being on the desert, I bet.
Yeah.
Down the bottom, Rita, there should be a share screen.
I already clicked it, but let's see.
Oh, there you go. Here it comes. Perfect.
Okay.
We see your screen now.
Okay. So I don't know how much you already know about this product. I know David shared something. So should I make just a quick presentation, or you kind of want to see the how it looks and feels from the tool perspective?
You know, Rita, I would start with a couple slides if it's okay.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
Slides. Okay. Okay, so let's start on this. So quickly just showing you about possibilities functionally about how Interface Manager can interact with everything you have. So can be SAP to SAP, can be non-SAP to SAP, you name it. We just have a slide that shows that we can do a lot of it, and it doesn't really need to rely on specific SAP systems. It's pretty much database also flexible. Okay, I do not want to take too much on the slide, so I will just go quickly over it. So then we have here just a few, three interface examples based on customers that we have. So we have an example with the finance modules where we have the integration for retail stores. We have about 200 retail stores which connect to a central SAP system daily to handle all their data, and they do this via the Interface Manager. Okay. Another example is from the industry perspective. So they handle all their inventory info plus status info, whatever data they need to be able to afterwards process all the billings that they need to send to their customers or suppliers. And a third regarding the logistics. So we have another customer which uses for their warehouses, so plants, to build up, to check their inventory and parts regarding their needs. So if they, for example, realize that they are getting out of some parts, they can just check this central logistics systems and borrow from other plant worldwide to get them into their warehouse so that they can be able to continue with their working. Basically, I'm just talking about an automotive rent. Okay. So regarding the importance of the interfaces for the automation, we have here the SAP systems, which have basically grown a lot and become very complex on it. And then many of the interfaces connections that have been built up during this time can also become very, very complex. The interfaces usually work in the background, so it's not really visible for the users to understand what is the process behind. So, but they are crucial for the operations. So, and this is where the problem arises, because if the interfaces become very complex and they do not keep up with let's say SAP changes on automation, which improvements or enhancements, they will be a problem for the future. So this is where Interface Manager from REALTECH helps you out. So it's very simple to design all the interfaces. It's very reliable, and in the end, very much more visible than the usual standard SAP process that exists at the moment. Regarding setting up the interfaces, there is the design, which is basically simple, lean, low code from our side. I do not want to talk much about it because I want to show you. Then there's the operation. So how do we process it? It's really reliable. You can basically define everything because it's also very transparent for someone which wants to see something but doesn't know how to use it, let's call it, or how it is designed. Let's say someone that is starting to use it for the daily business of processing it can definitely go there and see, okay, this is not something difficult to check. It's just 2 clicks and I can manage and see what is going on, and what, if there's any issue, what is going on. So this is where we go to the part of the monitoring. So running the interfaces, it's just can be triggered by the background jobs or whatever it is defined. But then regarding the monitoring, if something goes wrong, there is a lot of detail that can be activated, and then you have automated alerts which allow you, for example, to receive emails in specific situations of the interfaces. So if there were errors, if it aborted for some reason, if it's not being able to trigger the next interface process, you name it. There's some ideas. So regarding the interface management, in-house development versus the standards, I usually say that you can create your own developments for interfaces by coding it, or you can use standard software, which in our case would be the solution for with Interface Manager. So if you take a standard solution, is less expensive, of course, faster implementation, and not really much programming effort in this, because it becomes standard. So everything is pretty much configured based on the business process, and you do not have to reinvent the wheel every time. Again, also users benefit from the support. This is an easy one. And this is where where you realize that IAM is simple, intuitive to use. Plus it has some complex configurations, which allows you to get for scenarios which you would think, or someone which is defining requirements would think that would only be possible doing it via own developments, so creating everything from scratch. IAM can really help you on this by reducing the programming effort. So basically, what are the key features? The design. So all types of interface are created via a central transaction, and then basically drag and dropping. And if you have to do some coding for a specific thing, it's really not that much effort on the programming, as I said. And then with the click of the button, once you're done with the configuration, you can just generate all the coding and ready to be executed. For the operation, then this is a different one, a different process where you can just define how are you going to receive the information or export the information. And then you can also monitor all the, make sure that you have all the operation for monitoring configured, so that when you got to the process execution, that any interface execution can be monitored and successfully processed. Then, as I said before, all the monitoring can be defined. So you can define what kind of levels of monitoring you need, and alert in situations where you have to do something on your side to proceed with the executions with the interfaces. And again, as I said, there's the error management. So basically, if you define, when you have interfaces running on standard transactions from SAP, then you have to go to maybe each one of the transaction, check what is the issue, and then correct it there, and maybe need to go to another transaction, do the same. And then in the end, after a few transaction calls, then you can do your execution again. In this case, we have the error management functionality, which allows you by a click of the button, just check it within IAM, and then you can just reprocess it also from there. You don't need to go out to see anything. So from the perspective of interface management, the quality of the process can be optimized, the risks will be reduced, and then there's the visibility and control due to the monitoring and alert of the tool, which the tool triggers. Okay, so this is a quote from one of our customers, where is a powerful tool that enables companies standardize and operate their interface with at least half of the effort of the standard SAP requires. So how do we define the business process or mapping the business process into the IAM? So we basically just take a look at what are the requirements of the customers for the interfaces. Then we have some basic types where we define how is this interface going to be triggered, what would be the kind of information, where are we triggering, what does it do, and then we have the processing information. So the interfaces, the data conversion. So for example, if it's non-SAP to SAP, for example, or for example, if it's being triggered from United States to trigger something in Europe, for example, we have always this date and time conversions which are needed because you have the months before the day, and we have the opposite way, things like that. It's really easy to do this within IAM. Then there's the sequencing. This is like if you have several interfaces processes which need to be triggered, it's very easy just to sequence, create chains, let's call it like this, create change within IAM. Transactional charging, this is also can be monitored. The error handling, as I mentioned, the automation, and then you have the logging. I didn't mention, but we have everything logged, and documentation can be created based on all this information. So regarding S/4HANA automation, so we basically are currently doing our interface manager 4.0, which is was supposed to be certified in 21, but has been delayed one quarter, but it's currently now certified since April, if I'm not mistaken. We are fully certified, so regarding S/4HANA, it's not an issue at the moment. Regarding the processing, as I mentioned already before, these are kind of the values. So processing, adding value by specific the enhancements of the S/4HANA standards, because as you probably might know from the NetWeaver to the S4, a lot changed in the modules and in database tables. So IAM is very flexible. It doesn't really care what is on the bottom. It's kind of independent on this. I don't know. I think most of it talks by itself on this. Regarding added values, I think at the moment the standardization here is the key in the values added. Regarding the technology, we have all these technologies. We are currently working on our OData services to be able to make it available as soon as possible to the customers. But it's already working with XML, so it's not really a big effort at the moment to be able to work also with the JSON format which OData uses. And regarding the collaboration, the best practice is it's that the handling, so the transition for the interfaces and the subsequent operations afterwards. So it's really easy to do this. And the migration of the interfaces and mappings, it's also something that we support for doing this in the cases for where you have a customer which currently would have something like NetWeaver and then needs to change to an S4 systems, and they have their interfaces on these which need to be enhanced. Okay. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions.
Yeah, I do. Hi, this is Renee, by the way. I'm in the product strategy organization. So Michael and I are both product strategy, product management.
Mm-hmm.
And then Desmond Witt, also goes by Desi, is on the phone, and he is part of or responsible for our engineering team and development team. So just to take a step back, and by the way, if you have a demo, we would love to see it.
I do. That's why I'm going a little faster on the slides.
Yeah. But does this replace the delivered SAP connectors?
You mean PIPO?
Yeah, the SAP connectors that come with the application that the clients get access to for connection from an SAP to, say, another SAP or SaaS product?
Yes and no. So they can be replaced, but we can also encapsulate them. If you have anything already developed, that can be used within the IAM, we can also encapsulate. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel if you already have the wheel. Let's call it like that.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, we have customers which already had their own developments done for the interfaces, and they just needed the interface manager on that process only for the monitoring part. So what they did was encapsulate what they already had developed on their own, encapsulated in the interface manager, and now they are just using it for the monitoring and alerts on it. And they started developing new interfaces then from scratch within the interface manager.
Okay. And is there a limitation? Great that you have the future of SAP. We at Rimini Street support clients on all releases, right? So we even have R3 clients. Is there a limitation on of this technology on the version of the SAP application?
So we currently have our lower release on NetWeaver 7.3.1, which is the current version that where I will show you the demo. So it's the one IAM 3.1, which is the one which will support the NetWeaver 7.3.1. And then we have the IAM 4, which will be the one released very soon because we wanted to make some updates. And this would be mainly focused on the S4 already with some more functionalities.
Okay. Is there any back compatibility for earlier versions of NetWeaver?
Even lower than 7.3.1?
Potentially. I'm looking to see what
if you have something like that, we may discuss this.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
the lowest we are currently saying we support would be 7.3.1.
Okay. Yeah, we might have some 7.0 or 7.1 customers. So, okay. Okay, so that's the lowest version. Okay.
It would be the expected lowest version on this. We have a previous version 3.0, IAM 3.0, but we want to discontinue this one because we think that most of the customers are already at least at the 7.3.1. That's why
Okay.
I was asking it.
Yeah. Desi, do you have any idea what that customer base looks like? I'm not actually sure what the but we could, if we can take a look at it later, so it's good to know what you're. Yeah,
there's a kind of active projects that we've got is just a handful, but the feedback I'm getting from the SAP team is that it's a big percentage of our customers.
Big percentage of the customers are on 3.1 or higher, or below.
I think on 3.1, are you talking about the connector or the
NetWeaver version
of NetWeaver?
Yeah.
3.1, that's pretty old. I don't think our customers.
I don't think it's even supported lower than that from SAP side.
Yeah, well,
but this can be something that we can discuss in if you have this situations in the future.
Yeah, Rita, that's actually what we do, right? So we're a third-party software vendor that supports essentially legacy versions of the applications as well as current versions of the applications. So customers come to us, they drop their SAP support. That's why this was so interesting to us, because the capability, because when they do drop SAP support and maintenance and come to us, the connectors are a piece that are very important for, and the integrations are something that they lose access to, like those latest releases of the connectors when they drop vendor support, and so they're coming to us, and it's one of the gaps that they're trying to fill. So that's why this interface manager is very interesting to us, to see what it can do, whether it can help our customers that are no longer getting access to those connectors.
Okay.
So
Right.
we'll take a look at our customer base and looking at the NetWeaver versions.
Yeah,
We'll
and
discuss
And
them.
I think the point of this, Rita, is that I assume that the customers that we would be implementing with don't have access to the latest versions of anything from SAP. And so given that that is the background, what are the things about Interface Manager that would likely bubble up as an issue that may be dependent on the latest versions of connectors or NetWeaver or patches from SAP? What would be our exposure to having some issues, in that area?
well, I would have to say that IAM is pretty old. So to be honest, we haven't done any changes or specific changes since, let's say, 2008, 2009. And so far, the only point which we got feedback from the customers was this property ports called the J Exchange, which I could show you in a minute. And it's like the JDBC connector to the Java connector to external databases.
Yes.
Pretty much everything else that we use can be used with different connectors. Oh my God, connectors versions. And we did not have many issues in the past regarding this. So I have to say that our oldest customer is working with the IAM since '97, and they do not open lots of tickets.
Got it. So like the JCO connector is the one that is pretty common. A lot of people use that.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, if we had a customer that only had JCO 1.0, then that would work fine with this solution and wouldn't be any pressure to get them on the latest version of JCO, right?
I can get you a list of the connectors that we have and that we support and which versions we have tested on them.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it would be great if you could gather all these questions and then just send me this, and then I can find you the answers on this information, for this information.
Thank you.
So just quickly going over the customers, and then as you can see, not really just small customers around here, mainly German ones. Then we have the scenarios, but I think this is not really important for you because I already talked a little bit about this, and the logistic one where they just connect to the SAP Finance. And let's go for the demo. Okay. So feel free to interrupt me whenever you have questions. So I am, as I said, this is the version for 3.1, so NetWeaver version we currently are supporting before releasing the S/4HANA certified one. So basically we have this central console, and where we have this development part where we are able to configure our interfaces, generate them once we are ready, define our record structure. So how will the data be receiving or sending to the partners? Let's call it like that. And then rule builders will be the conversions. So how do we map the conversions regarding what we are receiving from SAP, other SAP systems or non-SAP systems? And then afterwards, how do we do the configurations for the generated interface code afterwards? On the top,
Hey, Rita, sorry, I just
Yeah.
wanted to add a key point. So when we do the migration from Charm over to Smart Change, we're using the Interface Manager tool to pull that data from solution manager and put it into our namespace. So this was a
That's why I
key.
know that. That's why I know that. Okay.
Perfect.
Got it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
should have mentioned that in the beginning, but
I should too. Sorry.
And that's okay. Yeah, that's I now recognize it from the agreement that it talks about the use of interface manager.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Go ahead, Rita. Sorry.
So this is where you this is where what you use to pull the historical data through.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So we have two interfaces, one for exporting the data from Charm, and then which triggers the subsequent interface, which imports the data into this Smart Change tool.
Okay. And before just want to clarify before we go too far on the demo, is this couple questions. Is this a cloud service or is it an on-premise?
It doesn't matter as long wherever you have your SAP system.
Wherever you have your SAP system. Okay. And then is it just a tool or is it a managed service offering?
Dave?
So usually when we sell to customers, we sell them the tool and then we train them and they manage it.
Okay.
That's sort of how, just like with Smart Change, we sell them the add-on into SAP. So we deliver it via transports, then we get them up and running, and then usually they do knowledge transfer, so they own the solution.
But if necessary, for example, if they want to do some conversions from their old business process and move them into the interface manager, we can also give some service by helping them doing this.
Professional services or
Yeah,
consulting.
yeah,
Okay.
we can help this on this. We did it for some customers, and it's fine. It's time and material based. This part.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So quickly going from the operation part. So this is where we define how do we execute the interfaces. How do we monitor them, and then of course configuration of this. This part of the process control is based on the how do we trigger them? So background jobs, schedule background jobs, and things like that. And for example, if you have change where you need to gather data coming from, for example, several files before trigger any interface, you need to merge them and then trigger the interfaces because you need information coming from, for example, from two files to be able to trigger the interface. This is the part as well. So this is why I said it's really complex from perspective of configuration, but it builds up very complex scenarios that most people don't expect the tool to do without coding. Okay, so just a quick overview regarding record structures. So this is like how we define our information. So in this case, I have a record structure, which would be agreed between the two parties of the interface. Which data is going to reach the interface itself. So in this case, I have a record structure which will be used to create vendors, as an example. Rule builders, let me go through the program builder. I think it's easier. So taking an example with our entities of the demos, I'm just going to quickly go here and see. So as I said, we have this interface which creates and changes a purchasing vendor. Then we have another for outbound, which extracts the vendor information. And then we have, for example, another one which creates and changes material master, and another one for outbound. Those are inbound, which extracts the information from the material master which was created. I will take a look at this one. And basically, this is how it works from the perspective of, sorry, the easy way going from here, because this is how you would see it if you would be creating it. So from the inbound perspective, you have then the header, which contains basically how the information is set up. Every, let's call it area or project as you wish, can have a separate entity, so it doesn't have to be all random. You can just group them. And then you agree on, as I said, on the file structure. In this case, it was the file structure that I just showed you before. We agree. I can have as many file structures here as I want to, depending if it's a single, if it's a compound, what is agreed between the parties. In this case, we have created something with screen basis. So we created a batch input, which receives the data from that, I think it's a file, and posts this information in the SAP system and via the transaction code, the transactions to create vendors, and throws a message in this case, in case there is already the information which is going to be created already exists. And in alternative, I'm saying, okay, if it already exists, then throw the message, but go to this and change the vendor which already is there and state this and add the information which is coming as well. Okay. So this is as basic as this one. How do we do this? We have here the screens for the batch input. Then we just activated with the batch input whatever fields that we needed. In this situation, we have all the fields that need to be activated based on each single screen that we have. How do we do then everything? So for the, this is not a good example for showing you quickly this. Let's try contact person fields. So here, so for example, if there would be something like rules conversion needed here, then this would be where we would have it. I can show you at the moment, but this is where we would define the conversion rule. So it's pretty simple so far. You just need to click and activate the fields within one click. So if I go here, I can just say deactivate this field, and then I can just say this one, deactivate this one. Okay. If I want to activate it again, I just need to click again and it will become active. It's as easy as this. Regarding conditions, then this is where I define it. So this was where I defined the coding. So MK01, as I said, create the vendor. I just have here this source code edit. I do not want to go too much on it. So if it's MQ1, MK01, if there's something else that cannot, if the transaction is this one, go on this one. If something goes wrong, then I have the second one, which says go on this one. User parameters can be defined for the inputs. So for example, I may trigger only vendors which start with test street, whatever. And then it will check if the information coming from the inputs is going to be based on this test street. Okay, then there are some user exits, which will be some enhancements or points in the coding where you are allowed to do some checks on your own regarding the object's information. So for example, if you want to do to skip something which is coming in the file that you do not want to be processed for a specific reason, let's say, for example, if you have a vendor which doesn't belong to a group, to a specific group, or you want to restrict this specific group to be handled, even though they are being delivered via the file, then we can just come here and say, well, if belongs to this specific group, then we can just skip this line and proceed to the next one, as an example. So once we do, no, I do not want to change anything on this. So once we do all this configuration, as you see, there was not really much source. It's just this if cause, nothing else really. And once we are done with this, as I said again, once we are done with this, with all this configuration, we can just come here and say, I want to generate this, and this will just provide me all the generated code based on the configuration that I did. So as you can see, I have all the batch input here as an example, and then somewhere in the coding generates the data and then just imports the data, and that's done, and processes the information which is coming. Okay, so far I didn't do any coding, and I'm not going to do it because there's nothing else to do on the program side. Once we go to the interface builder, I will go via here because I can already see them. We have here the part for the configuration. How are we going to process it? And this is where we have the information. So are we going to receive what? Is it a local file that we receive from the email we download and then we just execute it? Is it a server file which arrives to the server file, whatever, and then we just trigger in a background job every 10 minutes or every end of the day, as an example? Is it going to an FTP system? Is it something that we need to process from an external database that we can access directly via SQL queries, or directly via function modules that we already have defined to be able to call the information on the external database? So we have here a bunch of information. So plugin part is, for example, would be calling the interface twice in case there is a reprocessing needed directly. General port is, for example, an idea that if none of these ports allows you to do what you need to do. So for example, in our case, we are creating another port, which will be the OData port. And in this case, you can just also define one based on the rules that we have defined, and then you can throw in your own code there to be able to do this in case none of this fits. The null port just directly allows you to create, to run a subsequent interface. So how does this work here regarding the parameters? So there can be background triggers, as you can see here, file mask for archiving. So for example, if you want to archive the information from the execution, then a file can be created directly on the path which is provided. I don't know what else here. Nothing really important. So coming back here to the local file, here is the data transformation. So for example, let's say that I have this text file. I can define what is the data transformation. So for example, if I would have a CSV file, I could say it has a delimiter and it is, I don't know, semicolon, column, or pipe, or whatever. And the interface manager will be reading whatever comes in it and maps to the proper structure. Also, the XML format would allow us to read the information based on the DTD file, which is defined there as well. Okay. I do not want to go into too much detail, so let me know if I'm going into too much details. So regarding controlling, there's the interface process chain. So for example, if I have this interface creating all the vendors, and then for example, I want to make sure that all the monitoring, all the information which came from the file was processed successfully, and I want to create a report which to be sent by email to someone saying, all this information has been processed, if you need to do something, or even call a subsequent interface which sends this information to an even third party as an idea. I don't know. So here on the call transaction, so there's the updates. So in the processing mode, we can say, if we got errors, how do we want to process the errors? Do we want to show the errors, or we just want to display all screens and we need to go through all of them until we find the error, or we just need to show a specific thing? What else? Also, we can set up the BI session, but not really important in this case.
So Rita, a quick question. So obviously, right, we've got a SAP system, whether it's an ECC system, and connecting it over to, say, Concur or Ariba SaaS product. SAP releases a new release of Concur or whatever, right, that it's connecting to. Is it as simple as just going in and doing the modifications here? Because that's where SAP might release a new connector, right, for their latest release of the SaaS application. Do your clients just literally go in here and make the modifications that are needed to get that interface to work?
What do you mean? I mean, we need to have the structure for the data which is coming. So what kind of information do you need? What kind of information are we receiving? And then we just define that.
Yeah, I think maybe a good data point would be if, do you have any, kind of customer stories or use cases of where people have this running as an interface to Ariba or Concur, SuccessFactors, any of those types of products?
Not really. You know that most of our interfaces cannot be executed on our systems because we define them. On the ones where we helped, we had to define them on their systems. So we pretty much either we have access to their systems and are able to work on them, or we have something like just create the standard information, and then when moving this information to their systems, they fill in the information which we cannot fill in because we don't have access.
Yeah, so you might not know what they're actually using it for.
Exactly.
Okay. I think one of the things maybe that we should look at, David, is co-clients that we might have together.
Okay.
Because that would be really helpful, because we can reach out to them to see exactly what they are using it for.
Yep.
Yeah, and will let us know, right, what the interest is, because if we've got some co-SAP clients that are using this and we have no idea. But I understand, Rita, what you're basically saying, right? Because you're delivering a tool, not a managed service here. And
exactly.
So you won't have any idea what all the interfaces that they're using it for.
And I have to say that most of the time they even define their own structure, so Z structure database tables, and even if they would give us the transport request which allow us to install the interfaces on our systems, then they would need to give us also their SAP configurations for customization. They would need to give us also their Z tables to put in our systems, because basically they would be enhancing their SAP system with all this information. And if I don't have this, I cannot execute anything, which is basically, for example, I could try to execute one of these, which was a custom custom interfaces that we designed for a customer, but then I might not be able to do this because it has Z information on it. I could quickly show you how they do inventory adjustment, but I don't think it will help you.
Do you deliver templates with the interface manager? Are there standard templates that you deliver for common SAP Connect applications?
We have a few templates and we have some samples. Let me check if I have them on this system.
Yeah, it's like it, Desi mentioned, common applications that SAP connects to, like might be success factors or, some of the SaaS products.
No,
that are out there.
no, nothing like that, because we would
Okay.
need RFCs or whatever web services to connect to them. And we don't have that on our systems, to be honest.
Okay. I think the next steps would be to see some of those use cases. Let's see if we can identify maybe some co-clients. I don't know if you want to pull back up, or if you can send us the copy of the presentation. We can look at maybe some of your logos and see if we identify anybody that is one of our clients as well. David, I'm not sure, is it you that we would potentially work with maybe to
Yeah.
identify some co-clients?
Yes, yep.
Okay, all right, got it. And Desi, is there any, or Michael, is there anything else? I think I saw
Yeah,
Joe on here too.
Just a couple of questions. And Rita, I get that this is all kind of setting up the staging for discovering what the data elements are, what the structure is, and doing the extraction. But once the data is extracted out, what's the method for delivery to get this data into some third-party system? Are you using?
In this case, I used an inbound, so it's coming from non-SAP to SAP system. But I could quickly show you, for example, an outbound.
Yeah.
And in the outbound, you also have this information. And for example, you have here notifications, which I didn't get to show you, where you can just say, send the error log or send the run log with all the information, or the execution. You can just send this based on the status.
Got it. And
based
so
information. And we even have an email port, which is currently custom developed, and it will be available on the IM4 situation, where it creates a PDF where you can just send to the third party as an outbound interface, as an example.
Got it. So any support for REST APIs or SOAP or any web-based
Web services can be used. So we have, I didn't show you. We have this information. So web services, we can directly use them here. For the APIs, and we can even define a web services for this interface, which can be called from an external service. So we can call external APIs, or external APIs can call the interface and trigger it.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to finish the presentation so you see the rest of it. So basically, the part which is missing is the execution. So just quickly going through the execution, where you just click here and you have all the information detailed based on errors. So if something's wrong here, of course, you have completed with errors. And as I mentioned, you have here the part where you just go to the error, you see the error one, then you have here the data, which is coming from the source file or the prepared data after passing all the mappings and conversions. So you don't have, for example, if you have a file, you don't have to go to the file, change the file and re-execute this. You can just come here, change whatever you want to change, because here it's not a 5, it's a 6. You can just save it and then start the reprocessing it, and this will be gone. Okay. From the prepared data would be exactly the same process. So you would have here the screens, and then where you can change the data which is coming, if you know the values and the specific information.
Mhm.
And then you can just change it here and put it the information. Something which I also didn't mention, because I'm always talking about files and call transactions, but we also allow a lot of more information for loading the information. So in this one, I didn't show you because it was only screens based, but in the load method, we have here a lot of options. So we can use BAPIs, we can use the ALE services, external modules, which you already have developed from external parties, or for example, direct input, where I would say that own developments can be encapsulated, as an example. So this is where it gets the complex scenarios on the configuration, because you can have multiple situations created here for executing the same interface.
Mhm. And Rita, just a quick question on the data that's coming through. There might be some cases where you have to do some transformations on the data. Is that done with the rules, or how is it handled? Okay.
Yeah, those are the rules. I didn't get to show you also this, but maybe I can find one. Let's try something with date on my entity to see if I can show you ZR inbound. Just let's see if I can quickly find something. Date. ZR maybe. Okay, let's find here, for example, something with date and displaying. So basically in this situation, I have here the situation, what comes in, it's a relationship one-on-one. So what comes in directly goes here because I don't have a conversion logic. But I can have here a conversion of logic, like, for example, the one I told you. So whatever kind of dates we are receiving, just transform it to the specific ones. This is just an example. So your example would be this one, I think. So we receive it in months, days, and years, and then we transform it to the internal date on a SAP.
Gotcha.
And I'm just giving the information for dates because I think it's the easiest one to understand, that it's not common all over the world. So it's really easy to understand this.
Good.
And of course, what is the mask? Are we giving points? Are we giving what is backslash slash, I think, or something else? Or you can even define in other situation tables where you just receive an information, like for example, an A, and you want in the target, this A which you are receiving becomes a B, as an example, because A is not available on your SAP system and you know it.
Yeah.
The same situation, if you need more complex, you can also code it. And this is where it takes the effort on the coding. But usually you don't have to do this coding. That was it. No, I don't know.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Rita.
I took a little longer.
No,
Hope it's
no
okay.
worries. No worries. So Renee, we'll circle back and we'll try to, compare clients and see where we can work together on this. But is this something that you guys are looking for from a solution standpoint? Or I know you mentioned something about, an interface for non-SAP to SAP, and this can do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking for an answer to an objection of loss of SAP connectors. when they move over to Rimini Street, right, which is that interface. We're also have been looking at migration tools as well. So this, obviously you use this as a migration tool due to the fact, right, you're migrating historical data over to your charm replacement. So yeah, so I could see I could see multiple uses for a tool like this. We would have to figure out, right, I guess let's start to see what clients we might have, co-clients, what they're using it for, get some feedback from them. They're looking, and then we'll have some more questions about like how long does it take to implement, how long does it take to put in place, especially when we've got the same thing that we went through with you with your charm replacement. Yeah.
I have to say that a standard interface like the one I just showed you a little bit, like configuration, I would say a day if we have all the requirements defined. So it's not something like taking a month or 2 months to define an interface. No, it's just really about getting the requirements from agreement of the requirements, and then the configuration and won't take, let's say, more than 2-3 days.
Okay.
With testing, with making sure that everything is working and that. So
got it.
If we can consider that it won't be a complex scenario, I would say one interface, 1 day.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have to jump. I'm running late for another call. Unfortunately, it's with Gartner. So I need to jump over to that one as well. David, I will follow back up with you on what our next steps are, and we'll circle back here internally. We do have our Global Vice President from Professional Services on the phone as well, Bill Carlsley. So we're going to circle back internally and discuss what some options might be, and then we'll go start hunting down some co-clients.
Awesome. No, sounds great. Really appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you, Rita. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.